Angry Robot presents this unabridged recording of Ashok, Book 2 in the Paratwa Trilogy, by Christopher Hinz, read by Eric Meyers. 1. Gandhi stood with the captain on the flight deck, their hands gripping the sway bars, their bodies rocking back and forth. Outside the shuttle, the fierce Colorado region wind screamed across the hull, blasting wads of snow against the narrow band of windows, buffeting the craft as if it were a free-fall toy in the hands of a child. The pilot, strapped tightly in his seat in front of them, kept his eyes riveted to the instruments. Sight navigation was useless in such a storm. "Well?" the captain demanded. The pilot, maintaining his vigil on the control board, shook his head. "Gone again. It's a weak signal." "I don't care what kind of signal it is," the captain growled. "I'm not spending the whole day flying through this crap. If you can't lock on in 60 seconds, get us the hell out of here." A particularly violent updraft banked the craft 30 degrees. Gandhi lost his balance. He lunged sideways, mashed his face into the captain's shoulder, and inhaled the stench of a freshly spirited odorant bag. The smell alone almost knocked him back in the opposite direction. The captain glared. "If you can't stand a bit of turbulence, Gandhi, then strap yourself in." He exhaled slowly, turning away to hide his anger. This captain had a nasty temper, but corresponding displays from his crew weren't tolerated. Even a mild grimace could gyrate the man into a full-blown tantrum, and he had a smell that would frighten children. Gandhi wore an odorant bag, too. Most pirates kept a hybrid of foul scents looped around their belts, a symbol of their particular clan, a badge of the true Cousteau. Still, Gandhi removed his odorant bag once in a while. "It's back!" the pilot yelled. "I've got a fix!" The captain grunted. "About 15 kilometers southwest." "One of our ships?" "No." "E-Tech?" The pilot hesitated. "I don't know. I've never seen a beacon like this before. A sporadically pulsed cardioid pattern, extremely low power. I doubt whether anyone beyond a 30-kilometer radius could even pick it up. I'm pretty sure it's a distress signal, but whether or not it's E-Tech, couldn't say." "What could you say?" grilled the captain. The pilot shrugged. The captain's eyes drifted shut, a retreat into thoughts. Gandhi knew what his concerns were. If it's an E-Tech ship, it could be a trap. Sucker us down to the surface with a phony distress signal, then arrest us for illegal trespass. We're on a dirty flight, unlisted with E-Tech's orbital control, and we're in restricted airspace to boot. Lately, the bastards were getting tougher, with penalties for such intrusions harsher than when Gandhi was a kid. Whatever moral qualms E-Tech once had regarding entrapment were gone. Pirate captains, caught on the surface without permission, were being levied heavy fines. Some Cousteaus had even been stripped of their vessels. Good reasons for not responding to distress calls. But maybe the ship wasn't E-Tech. It could be other treasure hunters, just as dirty down here as they were. Maybe they had engine failure and couldn't lift off. An E-Tech outpost existed in Texas, 700 miles to the southeast. But if the captain of this shuttle was on a dirty flight, he wouldn't risk contacting that base, at least not until things got desperate. A short-range, low-powered distress beacon offered a fair shot of reaching one of the numerous Cousteau flights that constantly scavenged the planet. And pirates, whether down here legally or otherwise, provided the best chance for getting rescued and staying out of trouble with the colonial authorities. Boost the power of your signal, shout help over a 10-state area, and E-Tech security patrols would be crawling all over you within the hour. The captain opened his eyes. "I think it's a dirty flight." The pilot nodded. "Engine trouble, maybe." The captain's mouth twisted into the vaguest hint of a smile. "They might need our help." In the proper circumstances, help could be a very expensive commodity. "Let's take her down." Gandhi smiled, too. This asshole captain did have his good points. 10 minutes later, the 5 of them stood silently in full spacesuits, in half a meter of fresh snow, on the western edge of Denver. They were on the undulating terrain of a suburb of the mile-high city, beside the imposing front range of the Rocky Mountains. 9 million people had lived in this region once, had breathed this air, had made it into one of the great metropolitan centers of the 21st century. Now it was dead, no different from the other Earth cities, lifeless for almost a quarter of a millennium. The air was still saturated with organic poisons, practically unbreathable. Just another icon of planet Earth, another of humanity's junkyards, decimated by the nuclear biological apocalypse of 2099, 239 years ago. The storm had subsided a bit, or else the mass of Denver's distant skyscrapers somehow limited wind intensity at ground level. Even so, a fair amount of fresh snow swirled through the air, blowing down from the western peaks. Gandhi touched a sensor on his control belt, notched up his faceplate wiper. "What do you make of it?" the pilot wondered. "Hell if I know," a crewman replied. In front of them, an overgrown 4-lane highway bisected the suburban development, dividing the multi-story condos with shattered windows and collapsing facades into separate arenas. On an exit ramp to a dilapidated refueling station rested the strange shuttle. Its interior lights were on, and the main airlock stairway down. There was no sign of life. Their own shuttle squatted behind them on the entrance ramp, its stubby wings angling upward, blackened heat shields testifying to frequent atmospheric incursions. The ice and snow beneath it had been melted by the intense heat from their vertical landing jets, and plumes of gray smoke drifted from the sextet of exhaust tubes. "Let's go," the captain ordered, stomping through the snow toward the unknown vessel. "Shouldn't we leave a guard behind?" the pilot asked. "You scared?" the captain retorted. Gandhi stayed silent. The asshole should leave someone behind, just in case they ran into problems. No backup. That was begging for trouble. Their target was roughly the same size and shape as their own shuttle, about 50 meters long with a stubby body. There were no large markings, but that was not unusual. Anyone on a dirty flight ran the risk of being visually sighted by an E-Tech ground unit. Without markings, there was no way for E-Tech to ID the craft externally and bring charges against the crew upon their return to the colonies. The captain turned to the crewman with a small device strapped to the front of his spacesuit. It was a rhythm detector, standard hunt and search gear for ground expeditions. "Picking up anything?" The crewman checked the readout, shook his head. "Nothing, Captain. No movement within 300 meters. Either they're out of the neighborhood or still inside the shuttle." Not necessarily, Gandhi thought. They could be shielded. It wasn't extraordinarily difficult to block the scanning waves of a rhythm detector. The surrounding condos might have walls thick enough to inhibit the device's sensors. Move scramblers could also foul a rhythm detector, though Gandhi acknowledged the remoteness of that possibility, since they remained on E-Tech's restricted technology list. And black market models, if you could even find one, were costly. He said nothing, however, knowing it would be a wasted effort to broach any of his concerns. This was only Gandhi's 3rd flight with this captain and crew, but already their weaknesses were obvious. They were too clan-confident, relying on their reputations as costos rather than applying sound logic and judgment to potentially dangerous situations. Macho idiots usually died young. Gandhi thought it miraculous that this bunch, the captain in particular, had survived for so long. The five of them stepped carefully over.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?